Howdy everybody, welcome back to another fantastic review. Today we're going to be talking about Pinkstockings' new album, California Shades. Pinkstockings are a punk trio from Chicago, Illinois. They are composed of John Trax, who is the lead singer, Genevieve Williams, the backup singer and bassist, and John Drowning, the drummer, synth player, producer. In late 2016, they released their self-titled first album, Pinkstockings. I didn't review it on my channel. The second album, I think I have to talk about this one now because so many people asked me to review the first one. I thought, give this one a listen, and I was probably going to anyway. This has been a highly anticipated album, Pinkstockings hyping it up a lot. Implying that they're going to do something better and bigger. The problem is the things that they were on the cusp of getting, they almost completely abandon with this album. It's just stepping out of line from what they're comfortable with. So, I'm just going to go down the track list. Sand Dollars is a terrible, boring start to the album. Slow bass line couples with this weird kind of high synth that it goes on for too long. It runs for like 4 minutes and you're left scratching your head wondering why they put something like this on the album. Kiki, which follows it, is equally dull. Almost like they thought they should record the same song twice. They had this one concept of let's put a really high stringy synth up there and decided to repeat that feat twice for whatever reason. Coca-Cola Jazz attempts to be interesting, which is nice, and the lyrics are good, and Trax is almost at his lyrical best on this track. The problem with it is the music suffers as a result, almost as if Trax and Williams and Drowning just were not talking while this was being formed. Which is kind of why it's got this sort of droning, deep vocal while simultaneously attempting to do the same synthy, almost pop-punk musical feel. After that, Personality Oven comes on, and I think this is a pretty strong track. I think Personality Oven is one of the strongest tracks on the album. The problem with that, it's the strongest track on the album because it's the least deviation away from the old sound. It's the same, just kind of classic disco punk that makes for an interesting combination where you're like, this could go somewhere. Personality Oven, I think, does what this album should have done in general. It takes their original self-titled album's concept and just expands on it and moves it out. But I just don't think they repeat that feat enough, and I think Personality Oven sitting by itself kind of is made a weirder, out-of-the-ordinary track. I just wish the album were more cohesive around something like that. I wish that they had expanded upon their sound. I do appreciate California Shades for being a much cooler, more laid-back middle part of the album. And I think that Genevieve Williams here really shows off her vocal talent, kind of letting the soul come forth in a way that she can't do when Trax is the main one on vocals. And I honestly almost want her to record a solo album, just kind of leaving Pinkstockings by the wayside. I think that she could really excel on R&B project, or even like throw a little bit of punk in there, see where that gets you. But maybe, ditch John Trax. Next track, Imaginary Numbers, is one of the worst tracks I've heard this year, and it's barely February as of recording this. A pointlessly noisy, just overall disgusting track. The bass on this thing just oozes, but it's not in a funky or a groovy way like I feel they were attempting. It's more this gross kind of slime that seeps through the cracks and just makes for a disappointing sound. The next song sounds like a Fall Out Boy or Absolutely Midnight song title. Excuse me, sir, but I think you're stepping on my foot is just another return to form. Not quite as good as personality of him, I don't think, but it does do what I expect. It achieves the bare minimum for expectations for this album. It gets what it should get done. Graham, on the other hand, does exactly the opposite. It takes a concept that has been overplayed, social media use, something that's been discussed ad nauseum, and it just brings nothing new to the table. The music is bland. The only high point is, once again, Genevieve Williams kind of shines on this track, comes out and is given some more opportunity when she's allowed to lead the hook for once, and the song is better for it, though still not a tour de force by any means. Phantom, I think, closes out the album beautifully. I think Phantom on its own might actually go on some of my personal playlists because it's a very strong track. Well, Phantom is definitely a highlight on the entire album, and I think it exemplifies what disco punk should sound like. It fails in that it comes at the end of an otherwise disappointing, kind of boring album. And I think that this is a track that was written by Pinkstockings, that they loved, they thought it was brilliant, and they said, let's put this at the end of the album to end it on a strong note. And it ends on a strong note, but they act like that's going to fix the album, which it doesn't. It just kind of makes you realize how bad the rest of the album is by comparison. And that is to say that the album as a whole is kind of bad. It doesn't have any strong theme. The closest I can come to it being something like the concept album that Pinkstockings was is this idea of fame, that finally Pinkstockings has hit it big, which they haven't. This was a highly anticipated album, but they are not on the level of other artists in the punk or 2018 disco scene. I think that the whole album being a testament to some fame is ridiculous because they act like they've been around forever, or like they've been doing this for a long time. This album as a whole is primarily disappointing because of the hype that had been surrounding it. There's a deviation from the original sound, and simultaneously almost this copycat feel where they take all these original themes and ideas that they had on their first album and just move them over to California Shades. Most notably with Graham and Book off of their last album, which, I mean, really? There's a complete lack of imagination in the thematic assembly of these tracks. And at the end of the day, it's a disappointing, boring album. That said, Trax's lyrics are always at least poetic, and Williams has a fantastic voice. Drowning, always believable as a lead, a strong lead drummer. I just think that John Trax needs to either drop music or seriously reconsider the way he's approaching it, because right now it's just not working, John. I'm thinking of giving this album a 4, maybe a 4.5 if I'm in a good mood or a particularly punk mood. Always hesitant to apply this, the punk term, to something like like Pinkstockings, but that's a debate for another video. What do you guys think of this album? Is it a terrific tour de force that exemplifies Trax's lyrical ability, or is it a disappointing sequel to an already middling album? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.